Carl Edwards finally opens up why he left NASCAR. Casey Kane is making a surprise return to the NASCAR Cup Series, and one NASCAR Redditor really likes some fan fiction. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. On Thursday, we got our first glimpse at the Earnhardt documentary, the 4-part docuseries, which will be on Prime Video starting Memorial Day weekend. So we got our first glimpse at it. We now know a release date as well. Obviously, Memorial Day weekend is when the Prime portion of the NASCAR schedule starts, with them taking over at the Coca-Cola 600. Now, this 4-part documentary series, I can't put the teaser trailer in here because it'll get flagged the same way I can't put Carl Edwards clips in later in the show because Mike Davis over at Dirty Mo will flag it quicker than Major League Baseball does. I fully understand why, of course. Now, this 4-part docuseries, it's got Ron Howard involved, it's got Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved, and it's going to be a very extensive documentary into who Dale Earnhardt was, his career, and everything that's involved in that. And I hope everybody is involved in it, including Teresa Earnhardt. I don't know if she will be, but that's kind of my hope, because you need everybody to tell the story of who Dale was and what his career was on top of that. Either way, a 4-part series should be very good. I know people are going to be like, documentary about Dale Earnhardt's already been done. Yeah, but this is extensive. I think this is the one that truly needed to be done. And hopefully we get more of these from Prime, in the coming years, because of course they're locked in for the next 7 years as well. So excited about that. But we also have more Earnhardts to talk about, that being Dale Jr., because on the Dale Jr. download this week, he had Carl Edwards on. And for the first time, Carl opened up about why he left NASCAR. And I think it was one of the better episodes of the Dale Jr. download, mainly because Dale pushes back on Carl and gets him to open up a little bit further. So they talk about that fateful night in 2016 at the championship race in Homestead, where it appeared that Carl was on his way to his first NASCAR Cup Series championship. Probably should have been. It shouldn't have been Jimmy Johnson's 7th. Ultimately, NASCAR throws a caution, and you can debate the validity of that caution late in the race. And Carl had some interesting things to say, where he says, quote, "I know NASCAR was throwing those cautions to make it more exciting. That's a fact." Now, let me break that down a little bit. He said NASCAR does not throw those cautions anymore the way they used to. I would say 99% of the cautions that are thrown now are for legitimate reasons. Every now and then you'll get that caution where you're like, that probably shouldn't have been a caution. Like somebody locks it up into the corner and they throw a caution because they see smoke. And then you're like, they're probably sitting up in the booth too being like, shouldn't have done that one because it didn't need to be a caution. Back then, in the 2000s, all the way up into the teens as well, 2016, 14, 13, NASCAR is still throwing some cautions to bunch the field up, make it more exciting, right? This is an entertainment product, as Carl said. And ultimately, Carl, on that ensuing restart, tries to block the 22 of Joey Logano, gets turned into the inside wall, pounds the outside wall, and then goes down to the 22 pit box and like, hey, I hope you guys win this race. And we never saw Carl Edwards back in a race car after that. And since then, he became a bit of an enigma, a recluse. What is Carl Edwards? Where did he go? Why did he do this? And we never got a good answer out of it. People spent years pondering it, the same way I spend years pondering whether or not dinosaurs would be good for public works, which I still stand by the fact that they would be great for the Parks and Recs department. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, dangerous for some people, but survival of the fittest. Other people have been wondering about Carl Edwards. Why did he disappear? And it's a fair thing. It's like golf's Anthony Kim. Why did he disappear? Where'd he go? What's the details behind all of this? And Dale asked him about it. And Carl, at first, kind of opened up and was like, yeah, it was because of the championship race. And then Dale pushed back hard, and he's like, I just don't think that's why. And then Carl, to his credit, was like, let me build a bridge for you. And he kind of broke it down a little bit further. And a lot of it stems from 2016, especially that championship race, because Carl was like, I sat down and thought about it, and I was like, I can give another year of my life. I can be away from my family for another year, chase this championship, be back in the same position in 2017 at the championship race, and have a late race caution, take it all away once again. And ultimately, what it comes down to, he was tired of missing his family. He was tired of missing his kids grow up. He never saw his wife. He didn't want a late race caution to destroy his championship hopes once again. He felt like he was missing too much at home and had already done a lot in his NASCAR career, right? 28 NASCAR Cup Series victories, 2 runner-up finishes in the point standings, including tying for the 2011 championship. The tiebreaker went to Tony Stewart. Somebody on Reddit was like, or on Twitter was like, oh, they should have made him co-champions. We don't hand out participation trophies here. No, there's a tiebreaker for a reason, and that's the champion. Obviously, 2016 ripped out from underneath him. And then he mentions that like Dale's head injuries that Dale suffered in 2016 opened his eyes up. And he's like, I've taken a lot of hard hits. And ultimately, it maybe hasn't affected me now, but is it going to affect my time with my kids later in life? Because he's already missed so much of their young life at that point. On top of it, he goes on to talk about a few more things. And there was one moment where he said he was during a rain delay in Pocono in 2016, where he called his wife and was like, what am I even doing here? So I think it was just kind of a culmination of things. And then to cap it off there in 2016 at the championship race, having it kind of taken away from him, in that sense, I think sealed his fate. And he was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Said he went down to Key West, pondered it on the beach, and then on his way home, stopped into Charlotte and told Coach Gibbs, hey, I'm done. And then on January 11th, 2017, makes that shock announcement. I was sitting at the ski lodge at the base of Arapahoe Basin on a ski trip when I looked down at my phone and saw that and was absolutely floored by it. Didn't understand it at the time, and honestly didn't understand it for a number of years. I think everybody had their own theories on it, and a lot of the theories that people had are exactly what Carl said in his podcast, which I think is all valid reasons. And who's to say, whether or not I think a person should retire or not. If they want to, absolutely go about it. And Carl seems like he's super happy, right? He flew to England and manned a boat, crewed a boat, captained a boat, is probably the right word for it, back, and, seemed to enjoy it across the Atlantic. He's been flying his plane. He's been doing things with his kids, and seems like he's having a really good time. He told Dale that he didn't think that the sport missed him that much because it continued on, right? The sport carries on. You leave and it just keeps chugging along. It doesn't matter what your name is. And ultimately he said that, when he came back for the NASCAR 75 Greatest Driver, ceremony at Darlington, that was the first time where he said he realized, oh, people do miss me. People do want me back at the racetrack. And he was surprised by the reception he got, which of course he did. People were always Carl Edward fans. And then we saw him come back out to the track a little bit more in 2024. And now, obviously, he'll be joining the Prime booth in 2025 for pre- and post-race coverage, which I think is great. But the interview is definitely worth the listen. He and Dale talk about a number of things, run-ins that they had on the track, Dale meeting his dad way before he ever expected to. There's also a strip club involved in that and beer as well. Dale did not go into the strip club because he was underage, which is a very funny moment in the podcast where he was like, yeah, they wouldn't let me in. Yeah, of course they're not going to let you in. You're not 18. But yeah, I thought it was definitely worth the time. I encourage everybody to listen to it. Like I said, the link to the podcast is in the description below. Give it a listen, give it a watch, whatever you want to do. Carl, clearly not super comfortable doing these type of interviews, fidgeted a lot, made a lot of noises into the microphone, a lot of that type of thing. So yeah, just be prepared for that. But overall, I think it's definitely worth your time. And, for a lot of Carl Edward fans, I think it's closure, finally, to kind of hear what he has to say. I saw a lot of people being like, oh, this is what Kenny Wallace always said about Carl. No disrespect to Kenny, but I think everybody theorized the same type of thing. He wasn't the first person to put a hypothesis down on the table and was like, oh, this is why he retired. I think we all kind of had a pretty decent understanding as to why. Just glad it wasn't anything like, medical in the moment, or anything, that would have been bad at that. It's just a guy that I think was tired of it and, made his money, was ready to go home. And I think we can all respect that. Kasey Kahne made a surprise announcement on Thursday that he's returning to the Cup Series March 30th at Martinsville, driving the 66 car for Garage 66, which is a bit redundant there, but whatever. He hasn't been in the Cup Series since the 2019 Daytona 500. And since then, hasn't done a ton of racing, has done some off-road stuff, Baja 1000, ran an IMCA Dirt Modified, and apparently, according to Bob Pockrass, has been doing some, sporty car stuff at Thermal, but nothing in the realm of NASCAR or, oval track racing at that. It is worth noting, Bob Pockrass did say that NASCAR has approved Casey Mears to run this race. After, obviously, there's going to be a lot of talk about that, considering what happened last week with Catherine Legg. Again, great race car driver, maybe just in over her head a little bit. Obviously, NASCAR is looking at Casey's entire racing resume, and he has 489 starts in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I understand it. He's still young. He's been out of the car for 6 years at this point. Still different than the Mike Wallace situation. But yeah, I think that's why they went ahead and approved him here. Casey wants to get to 500 NASCAR Cup Series starts. His start on March 30th will be his 490th. So he's still got 10 to go through that, we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year. I get wanting to chase a milestone and stuff like that. Martinsville, interesting choice. Obviously, probably pretty safe to get approved there. It's a short track. Not much you can do to mess things up. Easy to get out of the way if you want to. So we'll see how all that plays out for him when he gets there. Has a lot of experience there. 3 top 10s at the racetrack, but his top 10s came 18, 19, 20 years ago. I mean, his most recent top 10 at Martinsville is old enough to vote now if it was a person, which it's not because it's a finishing position at a racetrack, but you get the point. Nonetheless, Hendrick Motorsports and Chip Ganassi Racing are where he got those top 10s. He, of course, won one NASCAR Cup Series race, 2007 Coca-Cola 600 on fuel mileage. Obviously, National Guard car winning on Memorial Day weekend. That's storybook, right? Dale Earnhardt Jr. almost did it, but Casey Mears, rather, did it first. The return of the Caseys this year as well. Casey Kane returning to the Xfinity Series, driving for Richard Childress Racing. But Mears, back again. Mears gang, going to be back in the Cup Series. I'm happy that he's going to chase this milestone. Obviously, that's not a car that's going to contend for the win anywhere outside of maybe Daytona and Talladega. But hey, if they can put together sort of a 10-race deal for him to get to that 500 mark, then so be it. I get wanting to chase the milestone for sure. Just didn't expect Casey Mears to be coming back to the Cup Series in 2025 to be on my bingo card this year. But hey, he's coming back. We'll see what he can do. And it'll be cool for his kids, right? Like they'll get the opportunity to see their dad race in the Cup Series as well. And I guess that's probably all that matters at this point. Last topic of the day, just not even a real topic, just something that I found very funny. On Wednesday night, a NASCAR subreddit user made a post and was talking about how Joe Gibbs Racing might have to move on from Denny Hamlin and hire Corey LaJoie because he's a, quote, sponsor magnet, and he brings a lot of sponsorship with him, and they can't find sponsorship for Hamlin, so this is probably the answer, is to hire Corey LaJoie to drive that 11 car in 2026. And I absolutely love crazy fan fiction because it just takes anything of merit into account and throws it right out the window. Facts? Screw facts. Numbers? Nah, we don't need any of that. This is what we need to do. Even though it makes zero sense at the end of the day. Even Corey LaJoie commented on my Twitter post about it and was like, I had a chuckle at this thread because it is very funny. I need people to understand that sponsorship at Rick Ware Racing is very different than sponsorship at Joe Gibbs Racing. Yeah, Corey LaJoie in that Take 5 sponsorship, he put together that package to run Daytona and Atlanta. Let's say, just hypothetically, let's say Corey LaJoie's got enough money together to run 5 races at Rick Ware Racing. On the Joe Gibbs side of thing, that's probably enough money to run 2 races, maybe at that. So to say that Corey LaJoie is a sponsor magnet, first off, not sure that's entirely true. It might be true at the Rick Ware Racing level of things. Not so much at the Joe Gibbs Racing level of things. And Corey's great with his sponsors. Hats off to Corey. He's out there grinding, trying to make this dream happen, chasing pennies, stacking pennies, as he says. And I fully respect that. I thought that last year at Spire, he drove over his head a little bit, got into some more incidents than he probably needed to be, and ultimately drove himself out of a ride. Now, you can make an argument that he's better than Haley, or Haley's better than him. I think it's kind of a 50-50 at this point in terms of the Cup Series. But we'll see what Haley can do. Of course, he's had some decent runs in that car and when he was at Colleague as well. But for LaJoie and for this whole situation, no, Corey LaJoie is not going to replace Denny Hamlin at Joe Gibbs Racing because he brings sponsorship along. That's just not happening. The financials of that don't make any sense unless Corey has got 2 seasons worth of sponsorship over at Rick Ware to bring over to Joe Gibbs Racing. Plus, on the Joe Gibbs Racing side of things, Denny has a multi-year deal. I don't think Denny's has signaled that he's, wanting to retire at this point. They do continue to attract sponsorship to him, and the other 3 cars at Gibbs are all sold out. Like, you've got the 54, 20, and 19 all taken care of. So if you're finding sponsorship, it's just for the 11, realistically, at this point. And yeah, they're going to be okay. They're going to be able to find sponsorship for it. I just had to have a good laugh at this guy just being completely sold on the fact that Corey LaJoie would be your best bet to bring in 2026. Not Alex Bowman, but Corey LaJoie, because Corey can attract sponsors. And it's like, all right, I mean, Bowman's won 8 times in the Cup Series, but yeah, let's discredit that because Corey LaJoie over here has been able to find some sponsorship. Whatever. I hope Corey finds a good ride. I hope Corey can contend for wins. I think Denny's going to be back, but I urge everybody to continue posting crazy fan fiction because it's very entertaining to read and sit back and watch. So Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about Carl Edwards' interview, the Dale Earnhardt documentary, Casey Mears making a surprise comeback, and this guy that thinks that Corey LaJoie should replace Denny Hamlin. Like, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.